What's up guys, and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to take a look at the 2014 Chevrolet Camaro Z28. I haven't seen one of these in quite some time. They are very rare, and this is a really track-focused muscle car. It is pretty crazy already just driving it a few miles. Huge shout out and thank you to HBI Auto for providing this sweet muscle car for today's video. They have a ridiculous selection of pre-owned cars, a ton of exotics, and some cool Camaros like this as well. So definitely check them out in the link below. So let's go ahead and start up with the power plant of the Z28. This has a massive 7-liter naturally aspirated engine. Crazy to see that large of a displacement for this road car. It's also only paired to the 6-speed manual, and of course, being a Camaro, we are looking at a rear-wheel drive car. This car has 505 horsepower and 481 pound-feet of torque and weighs around 3,800 pounds. 0 to 60 is around 4 seconds flat. And this car even has a set of carbon ceramic disc brakes. They are huge, barely fitting inside these wheels. You can see the massive caliper up front, huge set of wheels, and this car even has a set of fender flares, which is kind of cool to see this on the Camaro before we ever saw the wide body Challengers and Chargers. So it's almost like this was the first car with somewhat of a wide body. Obviously they're just fender flares, but it does look pretty cool. Rear brakes are massive, just like we see up front. This is going to be crazy to drive. As far as the tire goes, we have some Michelin Pilot Super Sports on here, and we get 305s in back. And then moving around to the rear, we do get a quad exhaust, blacked out diffuser, a huge NASCAR looking like spoiler on the back. So you can tell already this car is definitely track focused. If we go to the interior, this is the older generation Camaro, so a lot different than what I'm used to seeing with the new ones that I've been filming lately. But we do get a full Alcantara steering wheel. And then I love the Recaro bucket seats. They have Alcantara and leather on them. Definitely a really good looking seat, kind of similar to the ones you get in the newer Camaros. So let's go ahead and fire it up, keeping my foot on the clutch. We can turn the ignition. The V8 roars to life. Alright, so with a quick rev clip out of the way, definitely a good sounding car. It's going to be exciting to drive this and see what it sounds like while driving. We'll take one last look at the exterior before we take it for a spin. One thing really cool is how massive this front splitter is. You can see it protruding forward quite a lot. And then one thing really cool, we get Z28 in the grille, and we get the flow tie right in the center with chrome around it. Really cool way they've done this just to increase aerodynamics and efficiency as much as possible. And then finishing it up, we get a carbon fiber heat extraction vent up front. So we are now setting off in the Z28 Camaro. You can already tell that this really is kind of a stripped down car dedicated for track use. The bucket seats are really comfortable in it, and it's still a nice, normal, comfortable car. I have it in the tour mode right now. Same visibility you would expect in any Camaro. You know, mirrors all do a good job. Not too bad over your left and right shoulder. As long as you have the mirrors poked out a little bit, you can see back there very well. The carbon ceramics so far are the first thing that I'm noticing takes a little bit getting used to. Hitting the brakes, they're not warmed up quite yet, and they really bite hard. They do make some noise as well. Obviously, you got to get these things warmed up to temperature so they can actually function and everything like that. But pretty cool car so far. We'll go into the sport mode. I think that's really just mainly suspension, things like that. We'll do a slow acceleration now that everything is warmed up. This really feels just like a raw car. Shifter feels really good. Wow. Yeah, this is a car. It kind of keeps you on your toes the way it drives. It feels like there's not too much that's going to save you in it. And then the handling in it, it is really tight. We have huge tires front and back. And it's crazy for being a naturally aspirated engine. It's not the craziest as far as how much horsepower it has, but it actually puts you back in your seat. This feels much quicker than a modern SS Camaro. It still has more horsepower, obviously, but that's really impressive with how 7 liters of displacement makes such a difference like that, and the way just the power is delivered. Wow. Man, this car is at home taking turns, which you would never think about saying that with a Camaro. This is a muscle car. These are supposed to be straight line cars. But this is a completely different type of car. This is a handling car. It still is a big vehicle, obviously, you know, 3,800 pounds. It's not the smallest thing out there. But this car really craves to be thrown around in a turn. The steering is really nice and tight as well. There's pretty much no vagueness in it. Whatever you want to do, you just do it, and the car is going to follow behind. Man, I'd say this car is kind of a lot to handle, actually. It's not as refined as a more modern car is going to be, to where you can kind of just drive it fast, no big deal. This car seems to keep you on the edge of your seat, to where you really have to pay attention to everything going on to keep the car on the road, obviously. So this is definitely something else. It sounds pretty good too. I don't know if this is stock or has some mods on it or not. Looks like we had an intake up there. The carbon ceramics. Ugh, they rip the skin off of your face. Wow. Clutch is pretty light as well, so it's actually not bad if you were to daily drive this. Man. It is definitely a raw feeling car. That's what I'm finding so far with this Z28. Wow, it takes the breath out of you a little bit. I've driven a lot of the modern Camaros, the SS's. I've driven a few ZL1s, not too many of them, but this really does stand out much different than those cars. But then if we tone it down before we do the POV and exhaust clips, as far as a normal car though, it still can be normal. You know, in tour mode, the suspension's a little bit softer, and the interior, while it's a little basic, you still get the basics, of course, climate control, air conditioning, things like that. You know, the gauges are easy to read. The materials in here are decent. I do like all of the Alcantara that we get. There's a lot of plastics in here. It still is just a Camaro as the base of the car, but you still do get a pretty usable vehicle. And you know, I don't see any issues actually using this as a daily driver, but I like how, while it still has the daily driver aspects, this really does have the track aspects that, I mean, if this was your weekend track car or mountain car, this is gonna be one heck of a fun toy. All right, so we are now in the Z28 POV, and we got the exhaust running on the back. This is a really, really wild car to drive. Like I said, just a mechanical feeling. It just keeps you on your toes. I really like that aspect. It's just raw, a raw Camaro. If you really just want that type of aspect in your car, this might be the car for you. I really like that. We do get a few cool fancy tech things in the gauge right there. I have the G-force meter, so that'll be kind of cool as we hit a few little turns. Really easy to rev match this car. And I love these seats, these Recaro bucket seats. I am always a fan of any sports car if it has bucket seats. It just makes it, I think, more comfortable. And then they obviously do what they need to do for performance. Man, oh man. I feel like this car is kind of what a modern, maybe a 1LE package on an SS is gonna be. It's gonna give you the performance without being too crazy as far as like luxuries and things like that. Or maybe even the LT1 trim level, which is really all about just having the big brakes and the big engine. But this one is definitely a step up as far as how raw it is, comparing it to obviously a modern SS or something. But the steering, man, wow. And the more you turn the wheel, the sharper it feels like the car actually turns. So we got a nice sharp turn. I mean, it's so planted. And I think it was Motor Trend or someone I saw, they pulled a 1G in lateral grip at like 60 or 70 miles an hour. This thing grips like nothing. I really can't even feel the weight too well either. It doesn't feel like it's 3,800 pounds. You know, my Nissan GT-R weighs around the same, but this definitely feels way more planted. Such a smooth rev, like incredibly smooth. And then now that the carbon ceramics are a lot warmed up compared to what they were earlier, they're a lot quieter, and they really come to a stop. Goodness. And you know, this is still half throttling it, you know, we're not going anything too crazy. Oh man, that takes the breath out of you, the Z28. That is such a cool experience. I think if you're looking for that Camaro that just has the bare bones aspects, track feeling, mechanical feeling, this is what you want to get. And I believe it's around $60,000, so not too bad. We have around 47,000 miles on it. Really good shape too, you know, it wears pretty well. Well, yeah, we got some plastics and stuff. The Alcantara actually still looks pretty good. The leather looks pretty good. And this is definitely a wild car to drive. Man, that exhaust sounds good too. Definitely a really cool car. Hope you guys enjoyed today's video driving in the Z28. Huge shout out and thank you once again to HBI Auto for providing this Camaro Z28 for today's video. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. Stay tuned for plenty more content to come, and then check out HBI's website down in the description below. So that's it guys, I will see you in the next video.